In this video we will do as the previous one, except for the difference that here we're going to partition it manually. So I proceed by booting from the CD-ROM, and while this is booting I'm going to take you to the web page where you will can read more about partitioning. So we go to freebsd.org and we get familiar with the documentation. You take documentation up here and select the handbook. And then we should look for, let's see here, allocating disk space, I think is the correct page. Yes, this looks correct. Instead of this one we used guided before, so we are going to browse down to the manually partitioning here. It says that select this method opens a partitioning editor, and it will tell us that we want to select a partition scheme that will be GPT, and then we can select which file system type, amount and amount point. And if we scroll down, this is a creating traditional split file system partition. So we are going to partition in this way in my example. So we continue here by taking install. I select my keyboard map and I continue with this one. I can call it new server.local. That's the host name. I deselect the games. Select source code, but I deselect ports. In case I didn't say this before, ports is a collection of software that we can install on FreeBSD. This is not similar to the Linux, which uses apt get install. Instead, there is another command that have a similar approach in FreeBSD, which is called a pkg, which is the package management tool. The ports, on the other hand, will download source code and compile it on the machine, which takes much more time but brings a lot more flexibility to installing software. We will take that later, but just if you wonder what ports is, it's a collection of software that we can install. Okay, let's select manual partitioning here. Let's delete everything. Either you go here and press delete, or you press the D key. And as before, I'm giving a warning that what we are doing now will destroy the data on the hard disk drive. So please be careful, of course, not to use a hard disk drive that you care about. So you're doing everything as usual on your own risk. However, let's delete this then. I was deleting by pressing D, or you can go here, press delete there. So let's first of all take, let's see here, we take create, and then we want to select the partition scheme. I want to have the scheme GPT, which the manual was telling us to take. We can go here and have a look, and it was further up here, it was saying, there we have it. So it's good to refer to the manual. Okay. So let's see, what is the first thing to add then? The first thing should be a FreeBSD boot 512K. And to go up there, you press tab key. And I'm going to delete everything here. FreeBSD boot, and then 512K. Then I tab down to OK and press return. Okay. Now you see that here is DA0, which means that this is disk number 0, which is the first one in the system. DA0 here means that we are still on the disk, the first disk here, DA0, but P1 means partition 1. Here you can see the size of the partition, and here is the file system type. So let's see what the next one should be. We need a root mount point, which is this one. The root mount point is where all the other points are being attached to. So all of these var, temp, and USR mount points, which basically are like, what can we say? It's basically is a partitioning. In Windows, for example, you have the C for the system, you have the D for extra data, for example, you have E for another disk. These are like these types of things, but they are named var, temp, and USR. That's the mount point, however. So not to make anything confused, all of these will be mounted on this point. That's where they will be located. So, and all the files that you put on the root will be located here in the /root folder, the home folder for root. So let's create this. It should be a partition type FreeBSD Unix file system, 2 GB. So we go to create, FreeBSD UFS already selected. 2 GB, you can type it GB or simply G, will be the same thing. And the mount point should be /. Okay. And here you see the mount point, file system type, and the partition name there, and which disk it's attached on. So that's the pattern. Next partition, 4 GB of, let's see here, of swap. I will not take that much. I have like, let's say that I take 512 MB. Let's imagine that I have 256 MB of RAM. And that should be named FreeBSD swap. Create, and I tab to this part, FreeBSD swap, and 512 MB can be written like this with an M, and I don't need to have a mount point on it, so I just press OK here. You can see there is no mount point there. Okay, let's see what the next thing we need then. Here is the var. The var folder contains varying data. Some example can be mail and log files, these types of things. We will go into detail, see what's inside of var folder later. Let's say that we wanted 2 GB in this case. Can write it either like this or this, for example. And the mount point should be var. Let's see what the next partition should be. We need a temporary one, where all the temporary things are happening. You can see here. For example, all the users share the temporary mount point, where things like programs, when they need to write something temporary, they normally write to the temp, this one /temp folder. It can be 1 GB. And remember that when you are oh, okay, like when you're using I mean when you're partitioning, it's all a matter of taste, how you want to partition the system. So let's see here. 1 GB, and the mount point should be /tmp. And the last one is where all the system files and, for example, installed programs and all these things appear. It's the USR partition here. And then the best thing is to accept the default, which means the rest of the disk here. So we want to put everything in /usr, which is 14 GB in this case, like this. This should do everything. Now we have our disk here, DA0, and all it's contained and all the partition it's containing here. So DA0 partition 1, DA0 partition 2, DA0 partition 3, etc. And you see here the size of them, and you see what type of file system, and here you see which mount point they have. So when we write this now, when we take finish, as remember that the data of course will be destroyed on the hard disk. So I want this and I commit, and here it also warns us that this is the final chance that if we don't revert or and exit here, it will be erased then. So I commit. And now the installation will continue as it did before, so it's identical actually. I will go through all the steps, so I just pause here and and I will resume the video as soon as the first question arrives. And here is the first question that arrived here, and it's about to set the password for the root account. And if you watched the previous video, I explained that root account is like it's a form of an administration account in Unix-like operating system, so root has full power of the system. I'm going to set the password here. And the next question is to set the network card. In this case, it's EM0, which is my network card, and I'm going to select OK here. I would like to set an IPv4 address for this interface. And I would like to use DHCP. And if you wonder what it is, it's a dynamic host configuration protocol, which basically is a network protocol. So if you have, for example, a home router, it's very probable, of course, that it's certain that they're using DHCP. So when you connect the machine to the network, the DHCP is leasing an IP address to the computer, so you don't need to set it manually. So the DHCP will set the IP address automatically. So that's what I want to do here. Of course, we want to have static IP on servers, so they won't change the IP randomly. We will take it later how to set and assign a static IP and do all these changes, because I think it's better to know how to do it inside the system instead of doing it here in installer. So I select yes here to acquire a DHCP lease. I don't want to configure an IPv6 on this interface. In case you do, fine, that's okay if you do, but I will leave it here. Here you can change your DNS resolvers, which is like DNS servers, the IP address to them. They've already been filled out by the DHCP lease, so I can just proceed by pressing tab and select OK here. So is this machine CMOS clock set to UTC? If you don't know, you can select no here. I select yes because I know. And then I select my country, location, and yes. By default, the SSH daemon, the secure shell daemon, is enabled. In FreeBSD, you will not be able by default to log in as the user root through the secure shell, which is a remote connection. We can change this, of course, if you want. I will show later how we can make root being able to log into the SSH interface. If you think it sounds secure, it's up to you. Don't do it then. If you want to do it, then do it. It depends on, I'm sure that you know which option you want to select later on for that, but by default, root cannot log into the SSH. So we select OK here. Now it's asked if we want to add some users. We have the root account already on the system. In case you want to add additional users, you can do it now. I don't want to do it now because I want to do it later then, so I select no here. We are now finished with the installation and we can select exit here. And then it's asked if you want to open a shell and make some last modifications. And we don't want to do that. If you want to do it, fine, of course, if you want to do it, but I select no here. And the last question would be if you want to reboot now, and I do that. And now FreeBSD is installed successfully in this machine by making a manual partitioning. Manual partitioning, as said, is of course when you have more expert level. I can tell you that I feel that I'm not really sure how I want to partition my system if I would do it. Of course, it depends on one thing for sure, is that it depends on what you want to use your system for. I'm sure that you can read a lot more about this from other experienced users, how they partition and why they're partitioning in their ways. Like if you have a database server, it should be partitioned in one way. If you have a web server, it can be partitioned in another way that is more optimized for that type of server role. Alright, so we have FreeBSD successfully installed. Thanks to this documentation, we were able to make a partitioning after this example. So you are ready to move over to the next video, and we should check how navigate around and have a look in FreeBSD, the different files, how it is, where things are located, and I will try to explain, to give a nice tour as good as possible of where we have things in FreeBSD. So thanks for watching, and we move over to the next video.